The moment that still plays on repeat in my head is my mother standing at the head of the dining table, her finger shaking as she pointed straight at my chest and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "You don't deserve a seat at this table." The room went dead silent, forks frozen midair, mouths half open, and something inside me finally snapped after years of swallowing my pride. I stood up so fast my chair screeched across the floor and I said, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking, "Then stop eating what I pay for." The shock on her face was instant. But before I tell you how everything exploded after that, I need you to tell me something honestly. Was I wrong for finally standing up for myself? Or would you have done the same thing in my place? To understand how it ever got to that point, you have to know that my family has always looked perfect from the outside. Big house, Sunday dinners, family photos on the walls, my mom smiling like she was the glue holding us all together. Growing up, people used to tell me how lucky I was to have such a close family. What they didn't see was how that closeness only applied if you stayed in your assigned role. My older brother was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. My younger sister was the baby, protected at all costs. And then there was me, the middle child, the reliable one, the one who was expected to give and give without ever asking for anything back. From a young age, I learned that love in our house came with conditions. If I questioned anything, I was called ungrateful. If I succeeded, it was brushed off as luck or expected. If I failed, it was proof that I wasn't trying hard enough. My dad worked long hours and mostly stayed out of the emotional side of things. He wasn't cruel, just absent in the ways that mattered. My mom, on the other hand, ran the house like a kingdom, and she made sure everyone knew it. She had this way of cutting you down with a smile, of saying the most hurtful things in a tone that made it sound like concern. "I'm only saying this because I love you," was her favorite phrase. Usually followed by a comment about my weight, my choices, or how I could never quite measure up. For years, I told myself this was normal, that all families were like this, that I just needed to try harder to earn her approval. When I turned 18, I did everything right. I went to college, got a practical degree, and worked part-time jobs to help cover my expenses so I wouldn't be a burden. Even then, it was never enough. My mom would brag about my brother's minor achievements like he'd cured cancer, while my graduation was met with a quick, "That's nice," and a reminder that I still owed her for helping me with tuition. After college, I landed a decent job faster than anyone expected, including me. I moved back home temporarily to save money, with the clear understanding that I would contribute. And contribute I did. I paid rent. I covered utilities. I bought groceries, slowly, without anyone ever formally saying it. I became the financial backbone of that house. At first, I didn't mind. I told myself this was what family did for each other. My mom praised me publicly for being responsible, but in private, she started acting like my money was her money. She'd hand me bills without asking. She'd invite relatives over for dinner, and then tell me to pick up a few extra things from the store, which always turned into a cart full of expensive food. If I hesitated, she'd sigh dramatically and say, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me?" So I paid every time. Meanwhile, my brother moved in and out whenever he pleased, never paying a dime. My sister wrecked her car, and somehow I was the one helping cover repairs. When I tried to talk about it, to set even the smallest boundary, my mom accused me of being selfish and tearing the family apart. "Money isn't everything," she'd say, right after spending mine. I started feeling less like a daughter and more like an ATM that could talk. The resentment built slowly, like pressure behind a dam. I worked longer hours, took on more responsibility at my job, and came home exhausted. Dinner time, which was supposed to be our family moment, became the worst part of my day. My mom would sit at the head of the table and critique everything. The food wasn't cooked right. The house wasn't clean enough. My attitude was off, and every comment seemed to circle back to how I owed her for raising me. No matter how much I gave, the debt was never paid. The breaking point came on a Sunday night, one of those big family dinners where appearances mattered more than reality. Relatives were over, laughing, passing dishes around, complimenting my mom on how well she'd raised us. I had just come back from a brutal week at work, and I was running on fumes. I'd paid for the entire meal, something I knew because I recognized every item from the receipt still sitting in my bag. As we sat down, my aunt made a comment about how nice it must be to have such a supportive mother. I smiled weakly and stayed quiet. Then my mom looked at me, her eyes sharp, and said, "You know, if you had half the gratitude your brother has, you might actually deserve to be here." I laughed nervously, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't. She continued, her voice rising just enough to draw attention. She said I'd become arrogant since getting my job, that I thought I was better than everyone else because I made money. I tried to defend myself, quietly at first, saying that wasn't true, that I was just tired. That's when she stood up, pointed at me, and delivered the line that changed everything. "You don't deserve a seat at this table." Something inside me went cold. Years of being talked over, used and dismissed, all rushed to the surface. I felt my heart pounding, my face burning, but I also felt something else, something like clarity. I stood up, looked her straight in the 56th eyes, and said, "Then stop eating what I pay for." The room exploded into chaos. Gasps, whispers, my aunt dropping her fork. My mom's face went pale, then red, then twisted with rage. She called me disrespectful, ungrateful, a horrible child. My brother told me to apologize. My sister started crying, but I didn't sit back down. I walked out of that house and drove around for hours, my mind racing. Part of me was terrified. I'd crossed a line you weren't supposed to cross. I'd challenged the unspoken rule that I was supposed to give quietly and take whatever treatment came with it. But another part of me felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time, I hadn't backed down. So that was the situation I was in. Standing at a crossroads with my family, furious at me and my entire living situation on the line. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and ask yourself what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have apologized to keep the peace? Or would you have finally chosen yourself? When I came back later that night, the house was silent. My mom had locked herself in her room. My dad avoided eye contact. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened, which was almost worse. She asked me to transfer money for upcoming bills like it was a given. That's when I realized that if I backed down now, nothing would ever change. So I told her no. Calmly, clearly. I said I'd be moving out, and that until I did. I would only be paying a fair share, nothing more. She lost it. She screamed that I was abandoning the family, that I was choosing money over love. She told relatives that I'd turned greedy and cruel. Messages flooded my phone, some telling me I was brave, others telling me I was heartless. I found a small apartment within a week and moved out with barely any help. My brother didn't lift a finger. My sister cried, but didn't stop my mom from trashing me to anyone who would listen. The first few weeks on my own were hard. I questioned myself constantly. Every time my phone buzzed, I expected another guilt-filled message. But slowly the fog lifted. I realized how much of my anxiety had been tied to that house, that table, those dinners where I was never enough. I started sleeping better. I had money left over. I felt like an adult for the first time, not just a resource. The real climax came a few months later when my mom called me, her tone suddenly sweet. She asked if I could help with some expenses, because things were tight. I told her no. I said I loved her, but I wouldn't be treated like that anymore. She accused me of punishing her. I told her I was protecting myself. We haven't spoken much since. The aftermath has been complicated. Some family members still think I was wrong. Others quietly admit they wish they'd had the courage to do what I did. My relationship with my mom is distant and strained, but for the first time, it's honest. She knows I won't bankroll her disrespect, and I know that my worth isn't tied to how much I give. Looking back, I don't regret standing up from that table. I regret how long I stayed seated, believing I had to earn my place through sacrifice. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from a table where you're only valued for what you provide. If you were on my side like this video, if you want to hear more real stories like this, subscribe to the channel, and please, share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section, because I read every single one. I'll see you all in the next story.